Yes, I usually go by.
Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to have some people rolling in a little late here today. Seems like everybody's running a little late. So I wanted to welcome you to the screening room at the Cove. Thank you so much for being here for How to Pitch BioTech with Molly Schmid. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the SBDC, which is hosting this event today. The SBDC at UCI. UCI Applied Innovation is our host. They give us care and feeding, and we get to help companies here. If you're interested in what we do, we're the Small Business Development Center, otherwise known as SBDC. We are a resource for ventures from idea to exit. We specialize in one-on-one consulting that's very personalized, relationship-based. We can help your business start, develop, and grow. We help businesses get investor ready. We help primarily high-tech, high-growth, scalable companies in the life science and technology sectors. And we leverage UCI resources. So if you happen to be a UC affiliate of some kind, we have various programs at UCI Applied Innovation that you can take advantage of. We do all of this at no cost to you. We are funded by the Small Business Administration and California funds. Our expertise are in the areas of general business consulting, again, funding and pitching. We can help you prepare term sheets, equity and debt funding resources. We also have a background among our consultants in SBIR, STTR, grant applications in the process. We can help you with technology commercialization, or sales and marketing strategy, and depending on where you're at in your journey, you can use our resources to help you develop an advisory board or board of directors. And then once you really get going, any issues of hiring and staffing, executive coaching, et cetera. Again, we're funded partially by the SBA. The SBA helps businesses start, grow, and get financing. And there's a fantastic website, sba.gov, that I encourage everyone to take a look at. It has a wealth of resources, and it's very, very well done. If you are interested in some of our services, please come up to me or to our speaker, Molly, after the event. If you need to email me later, that's my email, and our website is SBDCtech.com. Our main office here is right by the beach, the main presentation space, and we're happy to take any questions or answer any of your concerns after the event. I wanted to introduce our speaker today, Molly Schmid. Molly earned her Ph.D. in biology at the University of Utah and worked as a research fellow at the University of Oregon. Molly brings more than 20 years' experience as an executive in the life science and small business biotech industries. She was vice president of life and health technologies at IE Crowd in Riverside. She was also the senior VP of preclinical programs at Affinium Pharmaceuticals in Toronto, Canada, where she managed several multi-million-dollar technical projects. Molly Schmid, Ph.D., currently serves as a consultant at SBDC at UCI Applied Innovation, focusing on providing customized solutions for life science businesses facing growth challenges. And in addition to being a consultant, Dr. Schmid currently serves as an entrepreneur in residence for Alfred Mann Institute of Bioengineering at USC. She is also an adjunct professor for USC Marshall School of Business's Lloyd Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies and UCLA's Anderson School of Management. So highly unqualified for talking to us today. Welcome, Molly Schmid.
Thanks, Julie. All right, so it's a real pleasure to be here. I do want to tell everybody I am pretty darn sick right now. If I don't shake your hand, that's the reason. I'm hoping to make it through this presentation. Please do take notes and take questions. There should be plenty of time for your questions after the presentation, okay? And everybody who's coming in, don't let me, come up front and get infected. I don't know, maybe you should stay back there. Usually I come on up front, but there's good reason to stay back, and I'll try to stay back as well. So this is pitching biotech to investors. This is the first time I've given this talk, so I really welcome your feedback on what should be added, what other things to think about based maybe on your experiences. The talk is in part a result of me hearing way too many really terrible pitches to the Tech Coast Angels. Pitches for technology and people that otherwise I think might have legs. And so I've got some prejudices about what, maybe based on which companies did well, which biotech companies did well with the Tech Coast Angels, meaning they succeeded in getting funding and the enthusiasm of investors. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the process, talk to you as an insider because I am a Tech Coast Angels member. Right here in the Orange County chapter of the Tech Coast Angels, there's a biomed subgroup that looks at all of the biomed applications that comes through and pre-screens them to make sure they're ready. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go forward. Let's see, just to give some background, this is what I'm gonna talk about today. What are the similarities and differences from other startup pitches? We'll go through that. This is not a comprehensive talk in how to give a pitch. You should hopefully have some good ideas. There are plenty of resources online. Somehow I thought this was in here, but maybe it's on the next slide. There are resources online. Bill Waldo, one of my colleagues in the Small Business Development Center, just gave a real nice Pitch Prep 101 workshop that was taped and is now online. And I think the link to that is on the next slide. So I want to go through similarities and differences. Who are you pitching to really changes probably some of the things I'm going to say. If you're pitching to angels, that's a little bit different than if you're pitching to venture capital folks, and I'll try to give you some insight into why. The majority of this talk is about pitching to angels, and that's the dominant prejudice. I personally have pitched to a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of times very successfully, so I'm happy to share those experiences with you as well. All right, I want to go through some things about why investors don't want to invest in you, and again, mostly angel investors. Why does some of them just say, don't tell me if the topic sentence is biotech, I don't want to hear it, right? I want to help you overcome that prejudice when you can, and recognize that in some cases, you're not going to overcome that prejudice. That's just the way it is, and that's based on those investors' prejudices and what they've heard in the past. So I want to give you some ideas about how you might be able to counter those initial prejudices. I want to give an outline for what I think of as a solid biotech pitch, and then I want to really strongly encourage you, don't just talk, walk the talk, right? You have to build the company that you're pitching. You want to build it for success. That's what the angels, that's what the venture capital folks want to hear and want to invest in. Okay, so similarities to other startup pitches. First of all, you're time constrained. Don't whine about it. 12 minutes, that's what you got, right? Don't go over time. In that 12 minutes that you have to answer all the key questions. What's the problem? What's your solution to the problem? Does anyone want this technology? These are things that every startup pitch, every entrepreneur who's pitching to investors should be answering. Who else? Who's the competition? How are you different? What are your differentiators? How can you protect your competitive advantage? Are you first mover? Do you have patents? What's the deal? What are the barriers? Who are you? Plural. Who's your team, right? Why are you special? Not just your biography, but why you are right for this particular startup company. And those are really different. I'm in a biotech, I'm CEO of a biotech company, but before I worked at General Foods. Well, who the heck cares, right? What does that have to do with anything, right? It may be true, but help me understand why that experience is going to make you a good startup CEO. All right, so it's again, creating the story, telling the story. Financials need to be there. Again, this is what everybody has to do, how much money you're gonna make and when, how much money you're looking to raise, and essentially what are you trading for this? And to an investor, you're trading a percentage of the company. While you're doing all this, while you're giving the pitch, you also wanna be selling yourself. And you'll often hear the jockey-horse metaphor. The idea is the jockey is the entrepreneurs, the horse is the idea. Which is most important? Almost all investors will say the jockey is more important. You are more important, because if you have a lousy idea and the market starts telling you you have a lousy idea, you as a smart jockey, as a smart entrepreneur, are gonna do a course correction, and I can trust you as a smart entrepreneur to do that. You wanna sell yourself as smart, honest, coachable, and most of all, probably committed. You're not gonna quit in the middle of this because it's gonna be hard, and we all know it. All right. Again, for all investor presentations, the purpose of the first meeting is not to get a check. The purpose of the first meeting is to get a second meeting. In 12 minutes plus some maybe 12 to 15 minutes of Q&A, nobody's gonna have the confidence to write the size of check that you're looking for. So all you wanna do is interest me, answer most of my basic questions, and have me at the end of that be saying, geez, that's pretty interesting, right? And then when in the room usually, the question gets asked, who's interested, who wants to follow up, you want me raising my hand. Right? That's the whole goal. If you've done that, it's successful. To do that, don't go overtime. Oh my God, why should I write a check for you? If you can't manage a 12-minute presentation, why should I give you my money and think you're gonna do good things with it? Practice that darn presentation. For the most part, we don't interrupt. So if you go overtime, it's because you didn't prepare. Okay? In the Q&A, believe it or not, is really important because more than anything, it probably tells us about you because you're in an interaction with us as investors. Don't blah, 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 answering the question thinking, I got 12 minutes of Q&A. If I answer this one for 9.5 minutes, I only am gonna get one more question. That's a terrible approach, right? You want, if there are 20 people in the room, you're hoping at least 18 of them are asking questions, and you have to make the time for that to happen. Okay, so if you have any goal, it's how many people can you get asking questions, because if they ask questions, they're interested. They've been thinking about it enough to formulate a question, right? If they don't care, you're gonna be facing a room and then the answer, or the question, well, who has a question? And everybody will be sitting there saying, not me. You? Not me, right? You failed in that. That should be feedback to you. If all of a sudden, what about this, what about that, you've succeeded. You've captured people's interest. Okay. If your answers are short, if the investor doesn't think you've answered the right question or wants to know more, create enough room, right? Because your answer has been short, create enough room that they feel comfortable asking a follow-up. If you've just spent 4 minutes answering a question, I'm unlikely to follow up even if I want to know more. Okay. All right. So if those are common, right? All those things, if you're pitching whatever, financial services, IT, what's the difference if you're pitching biotech? And some of the things that come up, probably the most frequent question I get from entrepreneurs who are preparing their investor pitch, which is a biotech investor pitch, is how much time should I spend on the technology? It's so complicated, it's so interesting, it's so wonderful. I have to get them to understand this, right? So out of maybe 12, 15 slides that I convince them to shrink it down to, 6 or 7 are on the technology. Bad plan, right? You've got to have a balance. You've got to tell your story. You've got to figure out what people need to understand your story, and they do not need to know the details of your technology, at least in the first meeting, okay? So how much detail in various areas? It depends, totally depends. Terrible answer, but again, you've got to balance things out. If you spend a whole slide telling people that Alzheimer's is a really important problem and it's $6 billion market, and you know that because of this and that, and millions of people, I'm looking at my phone. Where's my phone, right? I don't need to be convinced that Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, obesity are big problems. I get it. I read the newspaper, right? Okay. What you may need to do is understand what specific aspects of those diseases you're targeting. And if your answer is all of them, then I, as an investor, say, you, the entrepreneur, have not thought enough about what your solution is going to be good for, right? It's just not the right answer. You have to have an initial target market that is general. It's really, really important in biotech. Okay, how big is the market? A lot of times, other types of technology companies have to say, well, there are a lot of people who would really like to download blah, blah, blah. And they have to justify why there might be those people. Actually, you don't have to do as much of that. You can say colorectal cancer and look some, minor details up online, and that's probably good enough, right? The problem, the market is bigger than a bread box, right? And what the really important things is, can you get close? How close can you get? How far can you get? How far will my money take you on this journey? Okay. So let's keep going. Other differences from other types of startup pitches. A lot of times you're starting with some kind of technology. You're creating a technical or medical solution for a technical or medical problem. And in fact, even though they're real world patients who might be mom and dad and my brother and my sister or whoever, the person making the decisions is often a technical or medical professional. Okay, so you've got a complicated customer situation, but frequently it's technical stuff. And on top of that, it's paid for by a complex and sometimes uncertain mix of payers, right? The government, right, through Medicare, Medicaid, private insurers, HMOs, oh my God. And unfortunately, from the investor's perspective, too often at the end of the bio-entrepreneur's presentation, the investor is saying to themselves, I barely understand the problem. I certainly don't understand the solution. I can't even figure out who the real customer is, right? And the market is so complex, and the entrepreneur didn't help me get through that mess. I can't even begin to guess whether these folks can make any money, Okay, that's a bad place to be at the end of your 12-minute pitch and 12 to 15-minute Q&A session. So you want to really try to tell your story, make it simple, and make it compelling that you, in fact, can succeed in getting your product to market. All right, so, you know, I'm not going to give you any magic solutions here. Mostly I'm going to, unfortunately, point out the problems, okay? So differences from other startup pitches, you must create clarity in your presentation, even more than most. You have to create the story from the beginning, from the patient that has a need. The current standard of care is not sufficient for some reason that you really understand and can communicate. Your technology, even though it's early stage, has the potential to change that standard of care. And you want to create the picture for how that's going to happen. Okay, if you can do that, then you have a chance to convince at least some of those investors that you are one of the people who's going to succeed in this very, very, very risky business. Okay, so create clarity, work on your communication, how you explain things. Use metaphors. Metaphors frequently will help you overcome some of the technology the challenges of explaining that technology. It's like a billiard ball. It's like something that is a real world thing. Okay. You have to manage the complexities of building your company. If you don't know the right plan, everyone will be convinced that you're not going to get to where you need to go. And you need to master the art of telling your story. So here, oh, look at that. You see that? Okay, I'm just playing here. So in that business of balancing, you know, there's how much detail should I give? When you don't give enough detail, people are saying, I don't get it. When you give too much detail, right, you're down in the weeds, it's the Van der Waals forces or whatever, right? People are saying, I don't care, I'm bored, right? So you have to figure out where that sweet spot where people sort of get what you're talking about, or they can at least say, well, it's like something, because he told me it was like a bread box or like something, right? Without going so far into the weeds that they're saying, I'm not in science class, right? Get me out of here, okay? All right. So let's talk just quickly about who you're pitching to. There are a number of options. I'm going to, at the very bottom here, very quickly say there are philanthropic sources, right? And there's NIH. Do not forget them. They can definitely be valuable in your friends. The pitches to those folks will be different because their motivations are different, okay? An agency like NIH wants to better human health, right? That's what they want. If you can convince them that you can have a chance of doing that, then you have a chance of being funded by NIH. Philanthropy, they want their patients to have a better chance of living, I'll just say, normal lives, right? So help them. Help them understand why you might be able to do that, okay? But now let's talk about angels and venture capital investors. As I said, angel investors are mostly what mostly was thinking about when I put together this presentation. Let's just make sure we understand the differences between the two. Angel investors, like the folks who sit in the Tech Coast Angels meeting, are individuals with TCA or with Pasadena Angels. We work as a group, but we invest our individual money. Our constraints are, how much money do we have? How much money are we willing to lose? What do we want to invest in, right? And that decision about what to invest in is a lot of times driven by, I'm an investor. I want to make money, okay? Another part of it that does come in, I think here in Orange County, definitely in the Inland Empire where I am, I want to invest in companies that are in my area, right? Because I want to help build BioTech in Orange County or BioTech out in the Inland Empire, right? And I might be willing to put some money into something that if it were in Texas, I wouldn't even think about it, right? Okay, so I can invest my money however I want to. I can waste all the money I want. The SEC has said that I am an accredited investor. That's a SEC definition. And because of that, I can be as stupid as I want with my money, right? Or as smart as I want. It's all up to me. Okay. Typically, angel investors are funding seed rounds where the total round is in the low side, usually not less than $100,000. And on the high side, usually not much more than 1.5. Right? Those aren't hard boundaries on any side. We've had companies that come in and we think with 25K they can figure out if they've got something or not, and we fund them at that level. We've had other companies come in and go well over 1.5, typically by syndicating a deal with another angel organization who are pulling in other people, other investors. Okay. Okay. Venture capital investors are a little bit different. They're individuals, but they're working on behalf. They're employees or partners, or it's complicated. But they're working on behalf of a fund or a firm. And typically, they're investing in part their money, but the fund is comprised a lot of other people's money. Because they're investing other people's money, the SEC does constrain them, and they have a prospectus in which they said what they were going to do with that money, okay? And so they have constraints, and you, as you approach a venture cap investor, need to understand what their constraints are, because as much as they love you, if you are outside the bounds, they can't, right? They cannot, right? Venture cap investors are exceptionally important for biotechnology because typical biotech companies require just gigantic boatloads of money, right? So to bring a device, medical device to market, probably upwards of $100 million. To bring a drug from idea to market, depends who you believe, but way north of $1 million of, what am I saying? Way north of $1 billion of real money. Okay, so that's the kind of money you are never going to get from angels, and venture cap investors can make deals of those sizes. And in fact, they typically do not go into the size of seed rounds. They typically start north of $3 to $5 million. And that sometimes is written in their prospectus. Even if it's not, it's something that they just can't have a lot of small investments that they're trying to manage. Okay, where are we? I've lost track of time. Okay. Okay. So that's who you're pitching to. So now let's get back to angels. Why don't angel investors want to invest in you? They've heard too many bad pitches. When they hear a good pitch, frequently they've invested and gotten burned. And if they haven't personally done it, they've got a friend who can tell them, oh my God, I'll never do that again, right? And so it proliferates as, oh my God, don't invest in biotech. It's a disaster because it takes way too long. It takes way loads of money to get to market, right? 15 years average time for a drug, 5+ years for a medical device. How long you got, right? It stinks, okay? Because I, as an investor, I actually want to make money. This is not charity, right? It is an investment in you. All right. And bad pitches make it even worse because bad pitches frequently, the biotech founders are demonstrating through their pitch that they have no idea what it's going to take to get to market, right? You don't know what the regulatory hurdles are. You don't know what the development path is. You love your technology, and you're stuck there, right? And there are a lot of steps that go between that lab bench, great idea, great technology, and getting a commercial product on the market. Okay, you can say, I don't know, but I got great advisors I can call up anytime. The problem is, if you get great advisors, you're going to call them up when you've got a problem. And a lot of times, that stinks, right, from the investor's point of view, because you go 4 steps forward out into left field, and in fact, you should have been headed to center, right? So it's just a bad way. Is my money, my investor money, going to be educating you for the next startup? That sounds like a bad plan. So get some people on your team. The 2 things. Show me, don't tell me. You got advisors, you can tell me, you listen to them. But if you give a great pitch, so if you're in the engineering department and you give a great pitch that I say, huh, where'd that come from? I don't think they teach that in engineering. That sounds like a good plan, right? That shows me, I don't believe they're changing what they're doing in the engineering department, but you have listened to your advisors. You have gotten good advisors. So be that entrepreneur. Okay. Okay, we did that. Takes a lot of money. Takes a lot of time. It sucks as an investment thesis. Okay? A lot of money, a lot of time. I'm going to get my early investment is going to get crammed down by later necessary venture capital. You've got to help me as an investor understand that you know that there are a wide variety of exits that are long before that 15 or 5 or 10 years to market. Tell me, these guys got bought out before they were even in clinical trials. And they got bought out for a ton of money. Whew, I didn't know that. And they were just like us. And they're like 3 years from us. And then I can think, okay, they're talking about they want to get an investment. It's going to put their post-money valuation at $5 million. They're showing me a comp, right, a comparable, where somebody got taken out, acquired for $30 million at a point that's like 3 or 4 years from where these guys ought to be. Ooh, that sounds like a good investment to me, because I can do the math that says in 3 to 5 years, my investment may be worth 10x what it is today. And that's what I want. 3 to 5 years, 10x return. Okay? Okay. Okay, so what the investor is really scoping out in this short amount of time that you have, in the 12-minute pitch, in the whatever it is, 12, 15 minutes of Q&A, is how likely is it that this individual, this deal, is going to be a winner, right? It's going to succeed. All right, so be a winner. Make a reasonable plan that I, as a partially experienced, right? I have experience in pharmaceuticals that's direct. I have experience in medical devices that's vicarious by watching other people. I read, I know what it takes. You've got to know what it takes too, right? And as you give your pitch, I've got to be saying, that's good, right? Because when I'm in the group that's all my financial buddies that have lots of money, and they're looking at me saying, you got a question because I didn't understand anything he said, right? You want me to be saying, those guys are good. And those folks listen to me. If I say, that sounds like a good deal to me, that's what you want. Okay. Oops. So explain clearly what you're doing, why it's important, why and how you'll make money, and why investors should get involved. Okay. So just general things, know your product development process, be realistic about where you are today, be realistic about how much money it's going to take to get you to the next stage and then to market. Be realistic about how long it's going to take. Be realistic about the regulatory hurdles, not what you want. Of course, I'm going to be a 510K medical device. In fact, we're going to give a talk, I think, which is, oh, of course I'm a 510K, right? It's not necessarily true. Please get advice. Please have the facts to support that if we start asking you questions. All right. Create a scenario for achieving your goals, right? It doesn't have to be the way it's going to go, but it has to make sense, right? Mixed dilutive, meaning the next investor round, and non-dilutive funding, right? A corporate partnership is awesome because I'm going to be convinced as an investor that you're going to learn a lot from your corporate partners who know exactly how to take something to market. And it's non-dilutive funding, right? So in your mix of how we're going to raise $100 million should be, we intend to get a corporate partner, okay? If you're earlier than that, get some grants. There's nothing that says my science is good like I got a grant from NSF or NIH or even DOD. Okay. Have examples and comparables. When you say we're going to get acquired for a whole lot of money, have some comparables. Make reasonable valuation estimates and get advisors to help you, okay? And don't pitch before you're ready. I can't tell you how many. You get one shot. If you blow it, you better not pitch again or plan on pitching again for another year at least. So be ready, one shot, do it well. All right, outline for a solid pitch. This is silly. The similarities are big between a biotech pitch and a non-biotech pitch. Go through, see what sorts of things make sense, go online, get examples, but then modify them based on what the particulars of your situation are. Find the balance. Don't bore people, but tell them enough that they understand the story. Why? Oh, it seems like I'm going backwards because I'm pushing the wrong button. Okay. And then finally, don't just pitch, don't just talk, but build the company that you're pitching. Learn from every pitch. It's unbelievable how much you can learn if you're listening. And what's even better is if you're talking, if you've got one of your team members there who can take notes, because sometimes you can't listen, or you can listen, but you can't remember because you can't write it down. But honestly, if you're the only one there, write it down. Take the time. Get that pen and just be writing it down as somebody's talking. Take notes for yourself. And then live your pitch. Don't just say, yeah, we're going to get acquired, we're going to do a corporate partnership. And then if you get the second meeting and someone says, who have you talked to already? You say, oh, we're going to do that in a couple of years. All right? That's not living what you're talking about. If you know it takes time to develop the relationships that will lead to a corporate partnership. So get out, get talking to people early and often, even if it's way before you think you're ready. Okay, get out there and talk. Now, gosh, what a terrible problem you'd have if a potential partner came to you and said, let's talk about doing a deal. And you say, oh, we're not ready yet, right? I don't think so, right? I mean, come on, right? Money is money. You need a lot of money. You ought to see what they're talking about. What do they want in trade? And as they talk dollars, don't forget that you are the learnings you can have from a corporate partner are not just for that project, it's for the company. You will learn a ton, okay? And finally, be open to the idea of new leadership in the company. Do not go into an investor presentation and say, yeah, I'm not gonna be CEO, right? Not me. Now, let's go get another CEO. I don't want this stuff. You can't do that, right? You have to be committed, but you can be committed to saying, when the time comes, and it's gonna come, I'm an engineer. That's what I do, that's what I'm really good at, but we're gonna start looking for the person who can help take us forward. Investors, we'd love your help, but for right now, I'm in it. I am 100% passionate about this. We're gonna get somebody great to help us run this company. All right, and I think with that, I will stop and hopefully have some questions from you guys. Yeah. All right, how am I gonna do this? You're gonna do this. Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Schmid. Could you give some insight about kind of a little bit of what happens after a successful pitch? I guess there's like the Y Combinator handshake and all that, and when you actually go through due diligence with a business plan.
Yeah, there are a set of documents you should have prepared ahead of time because otherwise you're going to be up late scrambling. The types of due diligence documents you can go online, look up, get them all in place. For Tech Host Angels, what we'll do, we'll ask who's interested. Handful of people are interested. Who wants to be the lead? Your job is to figure out who that lead is and make sure to get their card. I can't tell you how frustrating it is. Oh, I didn't get their card. Because you want to be proactive about following up, all right? Once that happens, we'll organize a meeting with you and/or we'll say, oh, we got to get you in front of some of the other geographic networks. So there are 5 Tech Host Angels geographies, and maybe we'll take you up to the Central Coast and we'll be your host. We'll put you in front of those guys, see how many of those folks, so that we've got a consortium of potential investors. We'll go through, we'll ask you for documents, we'll ask you Q&A types of questions, more about this, more about that. Sometimes we'll have a list of questions. We'll ask you to respond in writing, and that's just to make it more efficient for everybody. But I would say the best case scenario is if you are proactively managing the lead, right? When can we have that next meeting, right? And open up your calendar, make it happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So on your 12 slides, you had like a couple of slides earlier, you said there were like 6 things you needed to convey to convince people that your plan is realistic. And I looked at your 12 slides and I had to fit all 6 of those things into about 2 slides. So how do you convey this sense of realism about the hurdles and the likely scenario and present the comparables, when with your format, probably 8 of those 12 slides are already allocated to other purposes. So how do you squeeze that in? Or do you put those on backup slides, or do you tell it verbally?
I don't know if you're talking, where am I? You're talking about this bad slide? Yeah. Okay, so this was just done as much as possible to make, so this non-BioTech, gosh, that's funny. This non-BioTech is pretty much directly from Bill Waldo's talk. It's a pretty reasonable list. I think it's about 15, 17 bullets. And man, oh man, 12-minute pitch, you should have 12 slides. Don't have any more than that. So even some of these should be collapsed, okay? So I tried to make a list that sort of paralleled this, combining sometimes things that are more likely in biotech to be able to be put into one. Whereas in a, like if somebody has a software solution or an app or something, you want to tell people really who the customers are, what the problem is, blah, 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 and then how you've got a solution. Here, we're doing colorectal cancer, first time naive patients, never been treated, or we're doing the other end, the folks that are you know, resistant to all therapies, they're going to get our therapy. But that's pretty easy to describe. Things like that are probably hidden are the business model. And the business model starts telling the sophistication of the bio-entrepreneur. Here we are, we're raising an angel round. It's $500K. That's going to get us whatever it's going to get us, right? Like the next big milestone that we can all agree, oh, did that, right? With that, we're going to have to go get venture cap money. What do we think the valuation is going to be at that point? What's the basis of that? Okay? Now, all of that you should have. You may decide that's too much detail for the first presentation, but you know it. So if a question comes up, you can give it to them. Okay? So this is a bad slide because it doesn't really say. What I would encourage you to do, and I thought about doing here, if you go online, there are a number of biotech pitches, like on YouTube. Hopefully get one that's short enough that you don't get bored. But go in and essentially do an evaluation. Be the investor. Would you invest in that? Right? And just, I think as you start doing that, you may come away with ideas for how to more effectively convey your particular situation, what not to do. Okay.
So this question is about the presenter.
Yeah.
Ideally, you could have a director or a VP or somebody located in every possible venture capital place, every possible angel area, and you could then have many pitches a month. But I'm not sure, from a practical point of view, you know, who would want to see, maybe somebody would like to see an investor in Birmingham, and then the actual inventor in Miami, and then maybe an investor out here, and they would all be pitching the company.
Yeah, you know, you're talking about a real virtual company. I'm going to be suspicious. Having been involved in these tech companies that are truly multidisciplinary. If you're developing a drug, you're everything from deep dyed-in-the-wool molecular biologists to chemists to pharmacologists to people that know how to put a business deal together. And if those people aren't sitting having lunch together and really diving into one another's sort of pressure points or whatever, I'm suspicious about whether you're going to have a good integrated product development plan, right? So I think there are certainly virtual companies, and it's something to consider. I'm the project manager. I'm going to have those guys do this for me, and I'm going to have those guys because I know what to do, and I'm going to manage them, I'm going to keep them on time, I'm going to pay them, all that kind of stuff. But there are things lost because there are little details that don't quite end up in your report that may end up being really important.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? Have you heard of Angel MD? It's an angel group mainly composed of doctors that invest in medical companies. So the one I'm thinking about is that. So the company is just in one place, but the investors or experts may be all over.
And that happens. I mean, a lot of angel groups are geographically oriented. The Ohio Angels, the Tech Coast Angels, Southern California. But yeah, they're, especially among MDs, that's fine. And they will try to use their expertise, their knowledge of the clinical situations, their knowledge of medicine, to gain an advantage to identify companies that they think are winners. And frequently you can get some very, very good, if you get angels like that, you can get some very good free information about the clinical situation to make sure that the product you're imagining is relevant. Yeah, so I mean, you know, Tech Coast Angels, angel groups like this are just one opportunity. Use whatever you have. The American Chemical Society has an angel group. There are many of your big universities now are creating angel groups for alums, for example. So use whatever you have, right, to get your company funded.
Hi there.
Yeah.
I'm Matt.
Hi, Matt.
I'm not from the biotech industry, so
Okay.
I apologize for the potentially dumb question. But one of the things that I've learned through starting businesses is I often get really enamored with my product, and I end up oftentimes forgetting about my customer and how the heck am I going to actually make money off this thing. And as I've gotten more into this industry, I hear a lot about reimbursement strategy.
Yeah.
And really, I guess, you know, kind of comparing it with tech, it seems like the user and the customer are kind of often separate or different, you know, different people in this industry. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, like, when I'm starting a company, like, you know, do I need to think about, hey, my customer is going to be in the insurance company. How am I going to create a revenue stream for these people, even though, you know, I want to help all these people over here, but like, how do I don't know what the question is, but like, how do I form that into like,
Well,
a
and
solid business?
you know, at the very point where you're still geeking out with the engineers or whatever, you should be thinking about those sorts of things. Who holds the money? And assuming we take this technical product development plan forward, how are we going to get paid for it? And so that's the reimbursement side. Another side that folks sometimes forget about until too late is also, what do you want to say about this new device or this new drug or whatever? How are we going to market this? And you can't just say, well, it's awesome, right, without data that says how and why it's awesome. And so even at the point where you're planning clinical trials, which can be pretty early, you want to be thinking about what kind of data you want to collect to tell the FDA, we're going to say this on our product claims because we've got data that shows that it's true. So even the marketing materials, because this highly regulated industry is regulated not just for what gets reimbursed, but what you can say about this product, become really important things to plan awfully, way earlier than you would ever believe.
I mean, should that type of stuff be in, you know, something that's coming to an angel, or is that down the road, or what's the?
To the extent that you show, right, all of this is, how am I going to tell my story? How much can I weave in and create a story that's memorable, right? And if there are ways that you can weave in that you are thinking about those way downstream things now that just shows your savvy as a bio-entrepreneur. So you certainly should think about, how can I do that, right? How can I do that really efficiently in a communication sense? And then to the extent you can, be ready with knowledge and information, or someone on your team who has that knowledge and information if you get a question. Make sense? Okay.
Compelling and clarity are different things. In biotech, compelling is the problem you are trying to solve in the biotech field. In the case of clarity, a lot of speakers are very poor. And for example, one should speak slowly, limit the presentation to the important points, avoid side remarks. Some people speak very fast, and they, like a machine gun, and they fill everything with side remarks, and they obscure the important points. So what people should do is only limit themselves to the important point, use the minimum amount of words just to present the point. And once you have presented a point, either repeat the point and then follow it with a silence. The purpose of the silence is for the audience to absorb the point and remember it, otherwise they will forget it. And at the end of the presentation, present a slide with a list of the important points, and then ask the audience, okay, is every point clear? Is there any question? And you go through number one, any question on number one, any question on number two, and it's just like a school class, you know? And that way, at least, you get. Now, the other thing is, sometimes the speakers are very poor, but they are saved by marketing. Marketing then prepares a brochure, which is very succinct and compact. And usually, even though the speaker is very poor, the brochure will work. And so what you do is you have marketing prepare the brochure and tell the speaker, please, please, follow the brochure. Now, you don't have to use the same words. You can paraphrase the brochure, but just say what's in the brochure and not more. And I think that would be...
And I think a couple of things. Very much agree with 99% of what you said. I think most biotech startups don't have a marketing person, shouldn't have a marketing person, and probably shouldn't have spent money creating a pretty brochure. Okay, that's just a bit of a prejudice, but to have a one-page summary that you printed off your printer, yeah, all right, absolutely. Okay, another thing you said, and I'm illustrating it here, is please, just as you said, your last slide, it's your real estate slide, okay? It is gonna, how long's that slide been up there? Okay, please don't make your slides say, thank you. Any questions? Everybody does it. It drives me nuts, okay? It is the dumbest thing. Of course, I can say thank you for being here. I'm really glad you were here. Julie's glad you're here. I make Julie happy because I want her to be happy, and she's happy because you guys are all here. Thank you. I don't need it up there for 10 minutes, okay? What I need up there for 10 minutes, what you need up there for 10 minutes, what's my company name? What the heck are we doing? And for Mark over there, who was on his phone the whole time, Mark the investor, who was like busy answering something, and at the end of the talk says, oh, thank God. Oh, wait a second, they're doing that? That's pretty, well, I should have paid more attention, right? Right, and that, believe it or not, that will happen in your investor pitch, where somebody wakes up. And if all that's up there is thank you, they're delighted they were on their phone. Okay? All right, more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one. How frequent or how common would you find biotech or medical device pitches to include maybe a plan B in the business plan? So say, this is the product that we're going to put in the clinical pipeline. It's going to take around 5 to 10 years, but we have this application for the cosmetic industry or other stuff.
You may get different answers to this question from different investors or different mentors, whoever. I think it's always important to have a plan B in your company because your plan A may not work. But if you are pitching, please, one of the things you should convince me is you are laser focused on whatever the heck you're talking about. You are going to make that work. Period. I don't want to hear a bunch of other things because if I hear a bunch of other things, I start getting very nervous about what you're going to be spending your time on. And at the point where I make an investment, your time is my money, right? And if you said you were doing this, by God, you better be doing that. And I'm going to be ticked off if you're doing something else that you didn't tell me about, okay? I mean, but, right, if somebody says, yeah, but what if that doesn't work? For you to have a decent answer, and even then I would think about it. Do you say, we're going to make this work, we can overcome those problems, blah, blah, blah? Or do you say, well, we're going to go into another market entirely? I don't think I'd do that. Just focus. One of the biggest money wasters is lack of focus. So convince me that you're like, got a goal, it's a worthy goal, you know how to get there, you're going to do your best to not trip too much getting down there.
Hi, Molly.
Yeah.
Hi, Molly. One of the things that you haven't really talked about, which I think especially the biotech needs, is storytelling. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things I hear about with investors all the time when I'm at pitches is that they never got to the hook until the end. And so they missed the whole presentation because their mind was wandering on other things because they didn't interest them until that point.
Okay.
And then they've missed the whole pitch.
Yeah, that's a really good
So getting
point.
the story out there and getting that hook right up front, I think
I
maybe you want to talk to that.
Just let me say, don't make it a mystery story, right? Don't make, I'm going to wait till the end. I'm not going to wait till the end. I'm going to be on my phone, right? So you're 100% right. Tell me up front. In fact, probably good advice is in that first slide, give me the elevator pitch, start to finish. What's the, you got all of us, we're all here, we're probably just putting our phones down. 30 seconds, tell me exactly what you're going to say in the next 12 minutes. Okay. Luis, a question, comment? You sure? Okay, thank you for coming. Yeah.
Okay, well, Molly
Go
will be here.
see-
Molly
go
will be
see
here
this guy,
afterwards
too.
to answer more questions. We want to let those of you who have afternoon appointments get going.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming out today. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce, Troutman Sanders, of which we have 3
Yeah,
Troutman
thank you,
attorneys here
guys.
today. Bardia in the back, Christina David,
Yay.
and their flyers are outside. They love to help startups and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, so please feel free to chat with them if you need any assistance. And also the SBA for their funding support.
Yeah,
We want to
thank
call your
you.
attention to our upcoming events, which all of our sponsors help us put on. How to build a winning team. Tomorrow we have a fantastic panel of recruiting, CEO of a recruiting firm, Bink Recruiting, Boris Epstein, Ali Hall is an executive coach, and 3 of our other senior consultants all talking about how to build the right culture for success. So we'd love for you to attend that as well. Please pick up a flyer on your way out. And then Illumina Lunch and Learn on the 14th. On the 2nd, we have Funding 101. We'll be talking about equity, debt funding, and SBIR, STTR grants. So if you have, go ahead.
Even if you don't want to do sequencing, come to this darn Illumina thing and see what they're doing. They invest, right? So just get out here, see what they're doing. They're big enough, you never know what they're doing, okay? Second thing, mark off your calendars. I don't think it's on the site, but sometime in October, we're having an amazing full-day workshop called Concept to Commercialization that's totally focused on bringing biotech products to market. Bunch of regulatory experts, people from the FDA. It's going to be all sorts of good stuff we're just planning now, but it was amazing last year. I learned a ton, and I can only guarantee you will learn a ton.
And then Jupiter Life Science
Yeah.
Consulting is coming
Yeah.
on April 9th to help us learn
Great.
a little bit about that as well. But
Great.
the one in October is a full day event, FDA, a live stream. It's going to be big.
Yeah.
So, great. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thank you guys. And again, don't shake my hand.